Tara, did I get the name right?
You got it exactly right.
Practiced and practiced and practiced. Kyle?
I wasn't listening, but
Perfect, that's the correct answer. We know why Tara is here. You told me a number backstage you don't want me to repeat, but you represent an enormous amount of the money that goes through YouTube. Comes through you.
Yes.
Want to explain why that is?
Sure. No, we were talking backstage about the fact that in the United States in particular, agencies manage much of the video investment, and YouTube falls under video, and therefore, since I run the agency team, that's why I'm here.
So if you are spending money advertising on YouTube, it's very, very likely that Tara has touched it in some way. And Kyle, what do you do on YouTube?
I am a choreographer.
That's your day job.
That is my day job, and I do dance videos on YouTube.
So your day job is getting paid by people who want you to choreograph something.
Correct. Artists, music videos, TV shows, commercials.
Let's drop some names, just so people get an idea.
Jennifer Lopez, Ariana Grande, NBC's World of Dance, Dancing with the Stars.
I've heard of many of those.
Yeah.
And then on YouTube, you do what?
A lot of the times I'll do like concept videos, and sometimes I'll just hold master classes in LA and I'll put it on YouTube.
So when did you start going on YouTube sort of in a professional way?
I started back in 2006, probably
That's when YouTube was created.
and that's when I found it.
Okay, you're right there.
Yeah. And then probably around 2010, 2011, started putting effort behind it.
And what was the thought? I want to market what I'm doing so I can get more work for my day job, or did you think you could make money doing
It was not, there were no monetary aspirations on YouTube back then. It was just like, I just want to create content, and as my professional career developed, it only made sense to make sure that what I put out for everybody to see developed alongside it.
So cut to today, I'm going to call you an influencer. I don't love that word, but it's what we're going to talk about here. What do you prefer instead of influencer?
I just
Popular person on YouTube?
And a celebrity.
I go with choreographer, that's why.
How many folks are following you, subscribe to you on YouTube?
A little over 4 million.
Okay, so that allows you to actually make money in addition to your day job being a choreographer. You work, how does that work?
I mean, there's different ways that I make money on YouTube. One way is I work directly with the labels, such as Atlantic Records, Warner, Universal, and they often will pay me to promote an artist or their songs and choreograph to their music.
So you promote them by doing choreography to an Ariana Grande song?
Exactly. And then the other way is by brand integration.
So let's show an example of what a brand integration looks like. So you can tell I'm kind of slow on the uptake because I watched that entire video prior to this and said, is that for Calvin Klein? But it is for Calvin Klein, correct?
Yes.
Okay, good. It says Calvin Klein at the beginning. So how does that work? They come to you? Do you come to them? How does Calvin Klein find you?
That was brought to me by FameBit, which is YouTube's brand services. Yeah, they approached me. They said Calvin Klein is interested in working with you. And that's one of the brands that I am also interested in working with. And
they're going to pay you X amount.
Correct.
You gave me a broad range backstage. You want to share what that range is?
No.
What does it cost to hire
No.
a significant amount of money.
Yeah.
Makes it worth your while.
And I, at the same time, I am also very particular about what brands that I work with. But they will, for this particular campaign, they gave me free creative freedom. They know that creators, oh, that's the word I like.
Better than influencer?
I offered you that word.
Thank you. So sorry. That creators do what they do, and they're successful at it because there's authenticity and it's organic.
And will that ad integration, will that only run on your videos? Does it run throughout YouTube? Does it run outside of YouTube?
As far as I know, right now, it's only on my YouTube.
Okay, so your fans come to your YouTube and they'll see that in addition to your other stuff?
Yeah, I mean, Calvin Klein posted it on some of their social media pages, but yeah.
And what's the reaction from your fans when they see you doing an ad?
I mean, there's been a big change toward, like, fans used to say, oh, you're a sellout, and oh, you're a sellout. Like, there's no other way to say it. But I feel like there's been a huge shift towards fans being like, oh my God, this is amazing, you landed this campaign, this brand is great. And there's trust behind the viewers. Like they trust the creators that they subscribe to, which is why, again, I have to be so selective, because I know if I break that trust, it's very, very, very difficult, if not impossible, to gain it back.
What's a trust buster? Who did you say no to?
I don't work with any alcohol brands or no cigarettes, nothing like that. Anything that I feel like might be, that is not in line with my values.
No vaping.
No vaping.
Tara, what is the influencer / creative / branded integration business mean for YouTube? Do you guys participate in this directly?
We do. I mean, I think Kyle mentioned FameBit, which is our in-house solution.
That's something you bought, right?
We bought it, yep. And we bought it because we saw the need from brands and agencies to have basically an easier way to market across multiple creators. We're a matchmaker.
Calvin Klein comes to you, says, I need to
eHarmony.
find someone interesting.
Yes.
You say, I got someone for you.
Yes, so for example, that campaign ran across probably a dozen creators. And so brands need to find an easy way where they can both help figure out in a data-driven way who are the right influencers, can help be set up to actually make the creative process happen, and then probably most importantly, can measure the ROI of it. So, you know, in some ways I think of this, it's not different in some ways from the way television used to be, right? Television had straight up ads, they also had sponsorships and product integration, and I think the influencer marketing model has evolved similar to the way the entire video model evolved, right? Which is now people are watching much more on their own terms, specific things that they're really passionate about and that they connect with in a deeply authentic way. And so when they think about celebrity, right, they think about creators. And so being able to tap into that at scale is where we saw the emerging market need alongside our core business. And that's why we invested in FameBit.
So you talked about the core business. You talked about scaling this business. Can you give us a sense of how big the Kyle type of ad integration is for you guys?
I mean, it's meaningful, and I think what we're most focused on is making sure that we're delivering results for brands within it so that we can grow that in a way that helps our customers succeed and helps our creators succeed.
Who here has worked to either spend money on this kind of integration or work with an influencer maybe on a different platform? Does anyone know this business well? Okay, very few people, or if they do, they're shy. I figured we could sort of explain how it works, what does work, what doesn't work.
Yep.
So let's say a Calvin Klein or someone like that comes to you and says, I've never done this before, but I'd like some fresh young people on YouTube to work with me and my product. What's step one?
So step one is just understanding what's your objective, right? What are you trying to do? And what is your brand all about? So that does two things. I mean, one, it helps us figure out some of the tactical things like how many creators, how big creators, what kind of engagement, but more importantly, some of the philosophical things like, do you want your brand associated with certain qualities, right? Helpfulness, boldness, they're different. And creators feel differently about having those brands approach them. And so we would surface through tools that we have a range of affinity types, right, categories, insights about the engagement of different creators, and give folks an opportunity to look at and sort of try to judge what kinds of creators make the most sense for them before surfacing up some of those channels so they can take a look and get a good feel.
And they can do this without going through you directly, right? They could just reach out to Kyle and do something, and you wouldn't participate in that at all financially.
So technically they can, and some do, particularly with some of the bigger creators. I think the challenge comes if you want to scale across a large number of creators. That's where the gap exists, both in execution and then also in particular on measurement. One of the big innovations to the FameBit platform was incorporating some of the accountability that Google brings to ads into organic content so that you can see directly not just some of the ranging from vanity to engagement metrics of viewership or followership or things like that, but literally how much impact did Kyle's video have on either lift, consumers' perception around recall or purchase intent, or search, which lets you not only know sort of how well that campaign's working, but lets you compare more effectively, which is what you need to do in your marketing budget.
So almost everything you said here would work in a traditional marketing campaign, right? If they said, we have this ad, we want to reach this many people, this is what we want to stand for, run it for us. The difference here is that you're directly involved in sort of shaping who they're going to work with and maybe some of how that creative is going to look like too?
I think it's ease of access. We do not get at all involved in the creative. That's entirely the range of the creator.
Calvin Klein comes to you and says, we don't know what we want to do, or?
Yeah.
Yeah, they have some kind of goal, right? But it's ease of access. It's the data and insights tools that YouTube's able to surface to make the matchmaking, as you accurately mentioned it, it's smoothing out some of the process components around just sort of getting the contracting done, and it's being able to deliver strong measurement and insights that lets you optimize the campaign. That's the main difference.
What's a common misperception an advertiser has when they come to you and says, I want to work with Kyle or someone like Kyle?
The biggest one is that they're going to get to tell Kyle what to do.
Right.
Right, and so I think, again, if you think about the number one thing that matters most in influencer marketing, it really is sort of picking a creator who's a good match for you and then trusting them and letting go of some of the control that many big brands in particular are used to. And on the one hand, that's hard, and on the other hand, you could argue maybe it should be easier because these guys have figured it out, right? I mean, they've been so successful at building authentic relationships with their fans, like they will know what works better than anybody.
But it's not anything goes, right? They're
No,
paying the
they
bill.
get to review the videos,
Right.
to make sure, for sure.
So is there often sort of like, we were hoping to get him to do this, and it turns out, no, a YouTube creator wants to do that?
There's often that dialogue, but to be honest, by the time folks are really active in the discussion, I do think it's become more commonly known that you really do want to trust the creators, and I've been pleasantly surprised. Yeah, chime in, you were saying backstage.
Yeah, well, for FameBit, I did one for Samsung, and they had approached me and they said, we're going to send you a phone and we want to see what you can do with it. And I was like, well, what am I going to do with one phone that's going to feel authentic to my audience? So instead, what I did was I brought in some of the top dancers in the entertainment industry that dance for everybody, and I said, send me 10 phones. No, 20 phones, Lies. 20 phones. And so they sent over 20 phones, and I gave them to all of the dancers, and then we filmed all on a Samsung phone, me teaching a masterclass to these 20 dancers, and they would tape themselves and watch themselves back, and we practiced how to dance on camera. So that was like a very organic way that felt just like it made sense with my audience, that I knew that they would appreciate those skills, even the people within class. It didn't feel forced at all, and that's it. That only comes when the brand trusts you.
Yeah.
And so Samsung says, please make us an ad. Also, please conceive of the ad. Also, please hand out the phones to your friends and help, and then do all the editing. It's a lot of work for you.
But I love what I do.
Yeah. It's a good deal.
It's also interesting because in some of these campaigns, different creators will bring it to life in very different ways, right? So Hershey did a campaign around the holidays for their hot cocoa kisses. And there were some creators who included them in recipes, other creators, Rosina Pentina had a contest for, like, she was doing a taste test with her boyfriend about which kisses were it. I mean, these things were impossible to keep on the shelf for Hershey's. But every creator brought it to life in their own way, which is pretty magical.
So the big elephant that's on stage in the room is brand safety, or whatever other euphemisms we want for how do I make sure that something terrible is not going to happen next to my video or in my video if I pay for someone to sponsor my stuff or to advertise my stuff. What are the concerns? And this is last week. You guys had a big fine you had to pay off, not that big. And this is a story that's been going on for years and years. So when an advertiser comes to you, how do you placate them? How do you ensure that they're going to get what they think they want?
I'd say a couple things. I mean, last week was actually not about brand safety, thank goodness. But to your point, it has been a topic for many years, and it's our number one priority is growing the platform responsibly. So we've been very focused on this. And I guess I'd say a couple things. I mean, one, even before you get started, as we've talked about with the community in the past, it's such a small fraction of videos that cause issue to begin with. And we put in place a lot of measures around adding people and adding technology to help us weed that out. And the feedback from the industry has been that they're very pleased with the progress that we've made.
And that concerns, I've sponsored this video, and then next to this video, something terrible happened. That's what you're talking about, dealing with that, right?
Right, or any variety of, you don't want to be associated with a video, period,
right.
that you don't like for whatever reason. So whether that's a safety issue or a suitability issue. When it comes to influencer marketing in particular, you have several additional layers of protection there in terms of, again, these are creators that have been looked at by FameBit and offered up to the brand, and you as a brand have the ability to look at any video before it goes live. So that, I think, has given folks confidence, and I would say, honestly, it's actually, this is an area where it actually comes up less rather than more, and I think that might be relatively specific to YouTube because of just how endemic creators are to our platform, and this is the heart of our platform. We make very transparent who the creators are and what they're doing, so you don't run into some of the issues you can have elsewhere.
I can think of at least 2 super high-profile YouTube creators that at various points you guys have celebrated, who then ended up getting in trouble for things they either did on YouTube or off YouTube.
Yep.
PewDiePie, Logan Paul. It seems to me that when you're buying into a creator or into
Yep.
an influencer, there's an additional risk there that even if the thing they create for you is fine, that maybe 6 months from now they're going to be making an off-color suicide joke. I guess any suicide joke is off-color. How do you deal with that concern?
Yeah. I mean, listen, I think that is, we talked earlier about the comparability to television and this being sort of the natural, organic evolution of the video industry. And I think it's not dissimilar from, you have that risk with any celebrity. I do think one thing that we see is creators always have feels to them, right? Logan Paul was probably unlikely to attract P&G in an influencer moment to begin with. And so what we'll typically see is brands like, often gaming brands or some media brands that are more comfortable with edgier creators, and some creators who just, won't go near it. And brands sort of manage their risks themselves in that way.
Cal, where do you think you fall on the spectrum of edgy, not edgy?
I'm probably very low risk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have to talk to the Samsungs and Calvin Kleins of the world and say, just so you know, here's where I'm coming from? Are they asking you questions about, are you going to end up, torturing a rat on camera?
I'll usually send over a pitch. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, but it always goes through an approval process no matter what.
We're spending a lot of time talking about YouTube, but there's other ways influencers / creators can make money on the internet. There's a growing business here on Instagram. I think there's one on TikTok. Are you playing in those platforms?
I am not on TikTok. I am on Instagram, Facebook.
And are any of those important financially to you yet?
Not as of yet.
Why do you think that is?
For me, I feel like my core audience is on YouTube, and I feel like the platform is built for what I do.
Meaning?
I feel like we were briefly discussing this, that YouTube's core values are like being able to just share what you do. I feel like Instagram, however, is like you go on there more to see your friends and like people that you know, so it becomes a little bit more difficult to do what I do to scale.
It's harder to broadcast.
Absolutely.
And what about TikTok? It seems to kind of uniquely suited to what you do.
I feel like with TikTok, it could be. However, I feel there might be a slight stigma towards it in the mainstream entertainment world. So I also have to keep in mind my professional career.
Do you sell anything, either directly through your videos or any related sites? Can I buy a Kyle hat?
No.
No. Have you thought, I think a lot of creators do that, either because they're not happy with the ad revenue or they want to augment it. Something you think about?
Not right now. I feel like I have enough on my plate, and adding one more thing might water down everything else. So yeah, for me, I focus on other things.
And Tara, is that something you want to enable either for the creators or for the brands directly to be able to do a transaction within YouTube?
Both for sure. So, brands today are doing a lot of transactions off of these influencer marketing partnerships. There are product shelves where you can sort of click directly to things. There are other call-outs that people make to help the brand get a direct commerce conversion. But we also care a lot about supporting our creators in ways, helping them make money in ways beyond ads. And so I don't know if you use any of the membership or super chat features or other ways that consumers participate. We also, as you know, invest a lot alongside creators and are really looking to support brands and creators in using YouTube, even more actively as a shopping platform. The early results from that are pretty powerful, so we're excited about it.
If I'm a YouTube creator, what's the threshold for me to get into FameBit? How do I get into your matchmaking program? Certain number of views, certain kind of content?
Yeah, it's a match of a certain amount of sort of popularity as measured by views, engagement, et cetera, but also a certain caliber of quality, and then willingness to sort of participate in ways that are friendly to brands.
How many people are on the platform now? How many creators?
Oh gosh, thousands.
Thousands.
Yeah.
YouTube has 2 billion users, right? So it's a very small slice.
Well, fair enough.
Right?
But especially because even if you look at a lot of the things we've done to enable monetization, require a certain amount of similarly sort of engagement, popularity, and sort of appropriateness for brands. The influencers are an even bigger subset of that because they have to be sort of a top of the top. But I guess the reason thousands to me sounds like a lot is wearing my marketing hat, trying to manage campaigns across either subsets of thousands or trying to even just sort of find the couple you really want can be daunting. And again, I think that's really what FameBit is aimed at, is using technology and data and measurement to make that easier.
Right, because the dream, right, is to make this as automated as you can, but there's still going to, in the end, going to be a lot of hand-holding and human touch.
At least, sure, yeah.
Is there a minimum spend before I can use FameBit if I'm an advertiser?
It really fluctuates because most folks come and their campaigns are a little bit all over the map, and how that fits into their broader ad inventory is all over the map. But so far, I can't think of a brand that has come to us that we have turned away.
Podcasting, where I spend a ton of time, dominated right now by direct retail. Are you seeing more of that coming into your world, or is it generally more brands?
Still more brands.
Yeah.
I think we expect to see more interest in that area, but for now, predominantly brands.
Okay, I have other questions, but I want to open it up to you guys, because some of you may be interested in talking to a famous choreographer or someone who controls most of Google's ad spend. Do we have questions? Have you been this shy this whole time? Wow. Okay. Is there a question? No. Kyle?
We've just been so crystal clear.
How long can you keep doing this for?
We'll see. I wish there was a short answer for that.
Do you have a post-YouTube career planned?
I actually do.
You look very young.
Thank you. It's the age.
But YouTube's a very Logan Run sort of thing, right? Like there aren't a lot of 50-something influencers
It's
and
true.
creators on.
And it's funny, I was actually talking with a very famous director and choreographer who choreographed a very famous movie that was used in a Super Bowl commercial. And they recreated his choreography for the commercial, and he got no sort of residual. So one of the things that I'm working on right now is creating a residual for choreographers, for myself, and for all future choreographers, working with a very prominent industry executive.
Does that mean you get some Fortnite money too when they take your
we'll
dance?
see, yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting. Got a question here?
Yeah, I come from the agency side, and we're always excited about YouTube and different ways that we can play with influencers. But a lot of what we get from brands is like, how can we rationalize the use of FameBit when the budget levels end up bumping up at a point where I could functionally make a commercial, which would be better branded and have a clearer call to action, and drive a more direct sales lift rather than just seeing awareness or understanding of the brand.
Is the question about using FameBit or just about using influencers, period?
FameBit, and in the high-end influencer space where the commercials look very professionally made but don't have that branded note that you would get from a TV spot.
So if I'm going to spend a lot of money with Kyle, if I get to a certain point, why not just make my own ad?
Sort of.
Yeah, I'd be interested, frankly, in what you've seen with, and this is exactly why we launched these measurement tools late last year, is because we thought that was a pretty common misperception in terms of the impact of those organic spots on the business. And so what we've seen from the ability to look at the lift in search and the lift in common brand metrics is they are typically, and to some degree as you'd expect because they're a new addition to the marketing mix, right? They are vastly outperforming their competitive media.
Because of novelty?
Well, no, because anytime you add a new thing to the mix, you get sort of a jump, if it's good, right? And then as you get more mature, the incremental spend flattens out. But the number of campaigns that we've seen going through FameBit has tripled in the last year. We think in part because of the proof of impact. So my hope is that we're on our way to addressing some of those concerns.
And Callie, that's not a question that comes to you, I assume?
I mean,
Once they come to you, they already know what they want?
It's interesting that for creators, we build relationships with our fans to the point that these fans feel like whoever they're watching is their friend. And so I look at it the same way. It's like if you're watching your friend recommend something to you, you're going to trust it more than someone who you don't know. So I feel like absolutely it would make more sense to me that you would trust your friend.
Have you ever retroactively said, you know, actually, now that I'm using this phone or whatever, I don't love it. I hadn't done that.
No, that's why I usually say no before that ever becomes an issue.
Other questions? Good. Tara, we talked about commerce. Anything else coming down the pike that people should be paying attention to in terms of what you're offering?
Well, I think the only other thing I'd think about, and it's interesting because we do bump up against a lot of folks who still really just have such affection for TV. And it's interesting because I think I grew up in TV. I have a lot of affection for TV. But in addition to what Kyle was talking about in terms of the connection with creators and how people are thinking about celebrity, one of the things that I think is super interesting, and it doesn't apply only to YouTube, is what's coming down the pike around OTT and what's literally being watched on the TV set, right? Which is now everything. And I think particularly, when you look at the fact that 75% of OTT viewing is basically dominated, or is basically a result of viewership on 4 companies, 2 of whom don't currently support ads. And so since YouTube is currently the leader in reach and viewing on OTT, we are leaning very heavily into the TV screen. And I think you can stay tuned for some forthcoming innovation on offerings that's tied specifically to people watching in the living room.
So you want Netflix to stay ad-free as long as possible because you want that money?
Listen, we welcome competition. There's a ton of it out there already, but in particular as it relates to TV and video, I think actually the more alternative options there are for TV video money, the better for the marketplace, including all of the competitors.
Kyle, I assume most of your fans are watching you on a phone, right? Do you know?
Funny enough, I see a lot of people watching it on TVs.
Yeah, it's our fastest growing screen, so that does not surprise me.
It's crazy, yeah. There's a lot of parents who film their babies watching my videos, bouncing up and down.
Trying to teach them choreography.
And then you can put those videos on your channel and then create the flywheel. No, there's no business opportunity. Okay, great. This is why I'm writing about it, not selling the stuff. Tara, Kyle, thank you so much.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.